Hello, I'm Lyn Jarvis, contributing editor for Across the Fence, and today we will tour the historic country of Turkey, with stops in Troy, a 4,000-year-old city and legendary center of the Trojan War, made immortal in Homer's epic poem, the Iliad, and then the ancient city of Ephesus, which I consider the highlight of our journey. A lot to see and do, so put on your walking shoes and let's get started.
We'll begin in Istanbul, and there's no better way to see the city of almost 14 million people than a boat ride on the historic Bosphorus Strait. Founded about 660 BC, the city now attracts some 7 million visitors a year and is one of the fastest growing metropolitan economies in the world. Its strategic position along the historic Silk Road and part of the only sea route connecting the Black and Mediterranean seas has through history made it of strategic and commercial importance as the primary waterway for the transportation of hundreds of thousands of tons of goods and supplies. But for tourists like me, the ride is an adventure because Istanbul is the only city in the world located on 2 continents. To the left is Asia and to the right, Europe. And if you have a good right arm, I'm pretty sure you could throw a baseball from one continent to another. Now that would be something to brag about. I had been so preoccupied with what was going on outside the boat, I hadn't noticed my fellow travelers and quickly realized that I was a long way from home. A must-while here is a visit to the spice market in Grand Bazaar. Istanbul is a tourist-friendly city, and with a good map, using the metro or tram are quick and inexpensive ways to get around. And if you have some extra time, walking along these ancient streets takes you back to what life was like hundreds of years ago, but the present is always just behind, or just ahead, as 5 times a day the Muslim religion calls for prayer, with speakers mounted on some of the 3,000 mosques throughout the city. The Grand Bazaar, the largest covered market in the world with some 5,000 shops, was our next stop. It attracts close to 300,000 people a day, and it seemed like every one of them was here, so we decided to come back later when we hoped it would be easier to get around. Nearby is the spice market, the center for spice trade in Istanbul, and since its beginnings in 1664, rents from the shops continue to support charities, schools, and a hospital. But much more than spices are sold here now, so let's do some exploring. Now this is going to need some explanation. These men are preparing a Turkish delicacy which is not a standard menu item in many restaurants. It's called kokoreç and made from lamb intestines. When the meat is ready, it's often mixed with chopped tomatoes and green peppers flavored with oregano. Ever onward, we came upon this man selling shish kebab, and being close to lunchtime, he was very busy. Originating in the Middle East, shish kebab translates to cooked on a skewer, usually made from lamb, goat, or chicken. This woman was shopping with her little boy who really wanted kebabs for lunch, and being a good mom, she ordered a large portion so they could share. And just look at that happy face. Our guide Masoud had other plans for lunch and took us to a restaurant in Old Istanbul that has been in business since 1920. Stepping inside, we knew it was going to be good as the place was jammed with locals and tourists who were obviously enjoying every bite. Masoud gave us some background on the place.
Here we are in the old town of Istanbul. This is one of the oldest restaurants of the old town called Sultanahmet Köfteci. Köfte, simply it means meatball. And this restaurant is specialized on meatballs. They have nothing else, just meatballs, some salad, white bean salad, some yogurt, and also this spicy sauce next to the meatballs.
Great, well let's enjoy.
Enjoy your meal.
And we certainly did. Before leaving Istanbul, once known as Constantinople, I want to show you some things to give you an idea of the antiquity of the country. Colonized by the Greeks in 685 BC, this is the hippodrome area where chariot races were held. The races provided rare opportunities for the common man to cross paths with the emperor. Over the centuries, the area was decorated with art from throughout the empire. An example is this obelisk from the Luxor Temple in Egypt, brought here by Theodosius in 390. This is the Hagia Sophia, the Church of Holy Wisdom, built by Justinian and dedicated in 537, and for more than 900 years it was the seat of the Greek Orthodox Church. We climbed to the second level, to the Hall of the Empress, where she and her court would watch the proceedings down below. In 1935, Turkey became a republic and the country was secularized, with Hagia Sophia being converted to a museum, now attracting visitors from around the world. Within walking distance is the Blue Mosque with its 6 minarets, commissioned by Sultan Ahmed I when he was just 19 years old. Construction began in 1609 and it took 7 years to complete. Upon entering the mosque, we must remove our shoes and ladies cover their heads. The most striking feature of the interior is this cascade of circles that seem to spill down from the large central dome. Its name comes from the some 20,000 beautiful blue tiles that feature flowers, trees, and plants, the overall effect being one of the most beautiful sights in Istanbul. Though it wasn't an official prayer time, a few men were kneeling on a scarlet carpet with ridges so that on crowded days, worshippers can neatly arrange themselves for prayer. Most Muslim women believe they should have privacy for worship, as while praying, many lie prostrate and feel immodest and embarrassed with male strangers next to them. The next morning we were back at the Grand Bazaar. It was crowded, but not like yesterday. Its beginnings can be traced back to the mid-1400s, and it was the center of trade for the Ottoman Empire. It remained Turkey's commercial hub for more than 600 years until tourists looking for the ultimate Oriental market arrived and changed its ambiance forever. Even though the bazaar has lost some of its traditional flavor, enough of the old still remains to make it an irresistible Istanbul experience. Our last stop is the Topkapi Palace, built in the late 15th century. It was the power center of the Ottoman Empire, with lands stretching from Asia to Europe and Africa. Its buildings form a series of 4 courtyards, the outer being used for public functions, and the further in you go, the more private used by the Sultan and his harem. Topkapi was home to some 4,000 people who rarely ventured outside, as it functioned as an autonomy, a city within a city. It had its own water supply and an enormous kitchen that is easily recognized by these chimneys to vent smoke and cooking fumes. Topkapi contains the richest collection of jewels in the world, and many are housed here in the Conqueror's Palace. Here are a couple of unforgettable pieces. The Spoonmaker's Diamond, considered one of the finest in the world with an amazing weight of 86 carats. And this is the famous Topkapi dagger, decorated with 3 enormous emeralds. Once owned by Sultan Mahmud, it is now the symbol of the museum. From Topkapi we get our last view of the Bosphorus, as we'll soon be on our way to the Asian side of Turkey. But just before leaving, let's enjoy a cool drink in the shadows of the sultans. Our first day in Asia was sunny and clear, a perfect day to visit Troy, written about by Homer around 800 BC. At first thought to be legend, scholars have now concluded that his epic poem, the Iliad, to be an accurate account of events that led to the fall of the city. It's the story of young Paris, prince of Troy, who stole Helen, the wife of Menelaus, the king of the Greek city of Sparta. This led to 10 years of war eventually won by the Greeks by using the deception of the Trojan horse, hiding soldiers inside. Heinrich Schliemann, a German archaeologist, is credited for the discovery of Troy back in 1870. Excavations continue with exciting new finds, and we'll see some of them tomorrow at the Anatolian Museum in Ankara. Without doubt, I have never felt the reality of time and place more than here in Troy. This is the path that the Greeks used to pull the Trojan horse into the city. During the night, soldiers hidden inside crawled out to open the city gates, letting hundreds of waiting warriors storm in to pillage and burn the city.
We are now in the ancient city of Ephesus, one of the most important cities of the ancient Mediterranean. Founded around 700 BC, it became a religious center and home of Apostle Paul, and the most important city for the Christians in the 1st century. And it eventually became home for Mark Antony and Cleopatra, and it's hard to believe we're walking on the same marble streets that they walked on almost 2,000 years ago. And what do we have here? Well, I'm told it's the first advertisement of the antiquity, directions to the city brothel.
And just to the left is the brothel dedicated to Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. Before entering, all visitors had to wash the dust and dirt from their sandaled feet. And after a prayer to Aphrodite, they were met and escorted to small rooms lit by candlelight. Not surprisingly, the wine vault was nearby. Ephesus is a splendor of antiquity, and at its height had a population of some 250,000 people and was a major port on the Aegean Sea. A sacred site for Christians, St. Paul lived in Ephesus for more than 2 years and wrote 4 of his letters here, including Galatians and 1 Corinthians. John, the disciple of Jesus, and the Virgin Mary both lived here, and they are buried nearby. A whole show could be done at Ephesus, but some highlights will have to do for now. This is the Odeon, a small stadium that served 2 purposes. Holding 1,500 people, it was a small theater for concerts and the place for the city council to meet. This library, built and paid for by Celsus, a wealthy Roman emperor, has been beautifully restored using all original pieces. It is decorated with marble, and niches in the walls were used to store some 12,000 scrolls. Beneath the main entrance is the crypt containing the body of Celsus. It was unusual to be buried in a library, so this was a special honor for him. Ephesus used to be a port city on the Aegean Sea, but over the years, silt and erosion steadily filled its harbor. Now the water is 3 miles away, but the ruins of the enormous harbor market still remain. This street once led to the sea and was lined with shops that sold a variety of items, including the triad of Greek cuisine: wheat, olive oil, and wine. Our last stop is the amphitheater built on the slopes of Mount Panayır. It was the largest in the Aegean world and a sight to behold. It could accommodate 24,000 people, with another 1,000 in a vaulted gallery, and when standing on the stage, a voice will carry to the very top row. It is still being used every May when it hosts the Ephesus Festival of Culture and Art. Sad to say, we must leave the splendor of this ancient world with a last walk along the glistening marble streets of Ephesus.
Isn't Turkey a fascinating place? And did you know it's about the size of Texas? Half of the TV sets and auto parts for Europe are manufactured here. It's one of the fastest growing economies in the world,
and 60% of the population is under 30. So I predict it's destined to be a major player in world economics. Tomorrow we travel to central Turkey to explore the fascinating Cappadocia region and the capital city Ankara, and a lot more. For Across the Fence, I'm Lyn Jarvis. See you tomorrow, and thanks for watching.
For a video copy of today's program, call toll-free 1-888-ATF-3430. Across the Fence is brought to you as a public service by University of Vermont Extension and WCAX-TV.